Mars, a world long dead on the surface, or so we thought. However, in 2024, the Perseverance rover drilled into the rock of the red planet and found something unexpected. Organic molecules, mineral patterns, strange isotopes. These could be the traces of life, or they could be the marks of odd geology. In a few minutes, you'll see 3 different lines of proof from Jezero crater and understand what it was that Perseverance truly found, why scientists are divided, and what final answers may come once the samples are brought home to Earth. Jezero crater is a scar nearly 30 miles across on Mars. Long ago, it used to be a lake. More than 3.5 billion years ago, rivers ran into this basin and laid down sediments in fan-shaped deltas. From orbit, the layered rocks of that dry delta can still be seen clearly. Why are we here? Because this fossil delta is thought to be one of the best places to seek traces of ancient life on Mars. In those quiet waters, fine clays and mudstones settled down. On Earth, this kind of setting could trap and preserve the smallest forms of life forever inside rock. With this hope in mind, NASA landed the rover Perseverance inside Jezero crater in February of 2021. This was the most advanced astrobiology mission ever sent to Mars, built to look for signs of life in the past and to collect samples for the journey back to Earth. The landing site was a flat part of the old lake bed, chosen to let the rover study sediments and the ancient shore. Perseverance was equipped with tools to search for biosignatures, whether chemical, mineral, or textural, the kind of clues that hint at life long gone. It could read the chemistry of the rock, detect organics, and even sense faint traces of gases that living things may once have made. Back in 1976, NASA's Viking landers carried out the first direct test of Martian soil to detect the presence of life. The results were mixed. One experiment found odd chemical activity that looked almost like metabolism, while others found nothing. The question was left hanging. Was that life or just chemistry? In the 2010s, the Curiosity rover uncovered organic molecules in ancient clay of Gale Crater and even measured strange swings in methane levels. Those discoveries were thought-provoking but ultimately inconclusive. Curiosity found long-chain organic modules, fatty acid fragments, in a mudstone more than 3.5 billion years old. On Earth, fatty acid chains are part of cell membranes and are made by living things. Yet the scientists warned that similar molecules could form even without life, through geology alone, such as hydrothermal reactions. But the oddities did not stop there. Even the methane in the Martian atmosphere carried a carbon signature that was hard to explain. It could point to microbes at work as part of the methane cycle, or to sunlight-driven reactions in the atmosphere. With this knowledge, Perseverance rolled out to the Martian surface to solve the riddle, and then in 2024 came results that no one foresaw. In the summer of that year, after more than a year of exploring Jezero, the rover reached the western rim of the crater and entered Neretva Vallis, an ancient river valley that once fed the lake. Bulging from the walls of that valley lay outcrops of clay-rich stone that the mission team named the Bright Angel Formation. This rock had formed from fine mud and clay dropped long ago in calm water. On Earth, clay formations like these excel at keeping microfossils safe, so the team was already keen to study them. But what Perseverance uncovered went beyond all expectations. The rover's instruments found strange textures and chemical patterns in one particular rock nicknamed Shaeva Falls. This rock was so unusual that on July 21, 2024, Perseverance drilled it and collected a sample of its core, later called Sapphire Canyon. scientists quickly noticed Shayeva Falls was not like any other Martian rock studied before. Its weathered surface was covered in leopard spots, small round dots with dark halos, almost like poppy seeds with rings around them. These spots stood out against the rusty red rock, visually signaling that something strange had chemically altered parts of the rock. The excitement grew when Perseverance turned its close-up tools on these leopard spots. The pixel X-ray spectrometer and the Sherlock Raman scanner examined them with great precision. To the surprise of the team, the spots held two iron-rich minerals in an uncommon pairing: vivianite, a hydrated iron phosphate, and gragite, an iron sulfide. On Earth, finding them together in sedimentary rock would be surprising. Vivianite often forms where decaying organic matter lies, such as the blue-green nodules in peat bogs. Gragite is even more striking. Some microbes make gragite part of their metabolism. In other words, this Martian rock bore chemical marks that life could have left behind. NASA quietly announced that the Shayeva Falls sample may hold a possible biosignature, a characteristic that might be biological in origin. As Dr. Joel Hurwitz, lead scientist of the study, said, "This is the closest we have ever come to discovering life on Mars." Still, which of this evidence makes this biosignature more than just possible and keeps raising the question of life again and again? In this case, the scientists set their sights not on one, but three main lines of evidence. That, in combination with each other, all point to the idea that the ancient lakebed of Mars was a place of complex chemical reactions influenced by biology. The first clue came from organic molecules, the chemical building blocks of life. Both Perseverance and Curiosity found different organic compounds locked in Martian rocks. On Earth, when organics are discovered in old sedimentary stone, especially large and complex ones, it often points to the presence of life once upon a time. For example, the aforementioned analysis of a mudstone performed by Curiosity in Gale Crater revealed long-chain hydrocarbons that seemed to be fragments of fatty acids. On Earth, fatty acids are commonly present in the cell walls of bacteria and plants. The size of these Martian molecules was striking. At the time, they were the latest organics ever found on Mars. This discovery suggested that prebiotic chemistry here may have gone further than anyone thought. Yet it is important to remember that organics do not automatically equal the presence of life. There's also a possibility of abiotic synthesis, like reactions that happen in hydrothermal chemistry, or even organics delivered by meteorites. Both could leave the same mark. Martian soil also receives a steady rain of carbon-rich dust from meteorites and ultraviolet light that can forge similar compounds without the need for any biological processes. The key question remains: what is the true nature of the compounds we found? Some of the complex compounds detected by Perseverance look like aromatic molecules. On Earth, these can come from biological processes, such as the breakdown of organic matter. The science team noted that the wide mix of organic and mineral associations in Jezero points to a rich carbon chemistry. That chemistry could fit with past life, or it could simply mean that Mars had the raw materials for life even if life never used them. Still, the discovery of a larger and more complex organic matter is encouraging, if only for the sole reason that it shows that Mars can preserve such fragile molecules for billions of years despite harsh radiation and oxidizing conditions. As one researcher noted, that gives hope that traces of past life might yet be found, since it means delicate biosignatures could have survived in Jezero's rocks until today. But we should not let the open-ended nature of this discovery lead us into quick conclusions. So, let us turn to the second piece of evidence, the mineral microstructures. These are essentially textures captured in stone. The second clue lies in special patterns within the rocks. On Earth, some minerals and rock textures are known to form as a direct or indirect result of life. A classic example is the stromatolite, a layered mound shaped by microbial mats in shallow water. The stromatolites of Western Australia are proof of some of the oldest life on Earth. They're laminar domes shaped by colonies of cyanobacteria. So when Perseverance cameras and instruments see odd features in Martian rock, astrobiologists quickly compare them to these familiar biosignatures. Indeed, Perseverance did find shapes worth our attention. At the end of 2023, the rover photographed rounded dome-like rocks with concentric rings, surprisingly similar to microbial stromatolites or microbialities found on Earth. These concentric forms were in the delta deposits of Jezero, just the kind of place microbial structures might grow if life had ever thrived in the lake. This certainly drew the attention of the mission team. Could these be fossil remains of layered microbial colonies? Yet, the stromatolite idea had to compete with a more prosaic answer: spheroidal weathering. Scientists pointed out that some non-biological processes can carve out concentric forms too. Spheroidal, or onion skin weathering, happens when water and chemicals seep through stone, rounding it into spheres with layered rinds as it breaks down. This process, completely devoid of life, is common on Earth and has been seen in other parts of Jezero as well. Mission geochemist Dr. Kenneth Farley noted that while the concentric features look strange and could lead to various conclusions, the team at present leans toward an abiotic cause. Still, let us return to Shaiva Falls and the Bright Angel Formation, the possible biosignature discovered in 2024. Here, the intriguing microstructures are the leopard spots, the sub-millimeter nodules and specks within the mudstone forming sharp reaction fronts. The rover's analysis showed these spots were rich in certain minerals, iron phosphates and sulfides, closely mixed with organic carbon. It's important to note that they seem to have formed after the settlement was settled, in low-temperature conditions and high water content. In other words, some chemical processes moved through the mudstone and left these mineral fingerprints behind. On Earth, one cause of such patterns is microbial activity. Microbes and sediments can drive mineral deposition. For instance, bacteria might reduce sulfate to sulfide, producing grains of greigite, or free phosphates that later settle out as vivianite. Scientists also point to the fact that in the cold, low-oxygen lakes of Antarctica, microbes are known to reduce sulfates and sulfide minerals while metabolizing organic matter. They suggest that if microbial life was once present in Jezero's lake, they too might have reduced sulfate minerals to sulfides, leaving behind the very textures Perseverance has observed. It is a striking parallel. At the same time, there's a strong but. These types of mineral microstructures can also form without life. High heat, acidic groundwater, or purely chemical reactions with organic molecules without biology could shape them too. Yet the mudstones of Bright Angel show no sign of heating or acid flows. That rules out some of the options. Could the organics themselves, even if not biological, have catalyzed the reactions at low temperature? It's possible, though not yet proven. In essence, the Perseverance team has claimed that either we have found proof of ancient microbial metabolism or Mars produced an extraordinary chemical trick all on its own. The scientists tread carefully here. As Dr. Katie Stack-Morgan, Deputy Project Scientist, reminded us, astrobiological claims require extraordinary evidence, and while abiotic explanations seem less likely for Bright Angel, we cannot rule them out. And so, the local mineral microstructures stand as a classic scientific cliffhanger. And sure, you may say that 2 lines of evidence with answers maybe yes and maybe no still lead to an open-ended conclusion. But now comes the third clue. The third line of evidence lies in the isotopes of certain elements, especially carbon found in Martian material. Isotopes are atoms of the same element with different weights. The key point is that life has a habit of sorting isotopes in subtle but distinctive ways. On Earth, living organisms often prefer the lighter carbon-12 over the heavier carbon-13, so biological organic matter is usually isotopically lighter. Conversely, geology shows no such preference unless specific physical processes intervene. This means that unusual isotope ratios may be the very key we seek. They may signal the work of life, or they may point to rare, non-biological chemistry. Both Curiosity and Perseverance have made contributions to this isotope puzzle. In 2022, a team led by Christopher House reported strange carbon isotope values from Curiosity's analysis of an ancient mudstone in Gale Crater. Curiosity heated powdered rock and measured the carbon in the gases released, either CO2 or methane. Some samples contained carbon that was strikingly light. In fact, these values were much lighter, meaning richer in carbon-12, than those of Martian meteorites or even the atmosphere of Mars. On Earth, such depletion can be a sign of microbes at work. Methane-producing microbes, for instance, can leave behind very light carbon. Dr. House's team laid out several possible explanations. One was that there were microbes on ancient Mars that processed methane in ways that left this isotope fingerprint behind. Another was that non-biological chemistry, such as an ultraviolet radiation breaking apart CO2 high in the atmosphere during a massive dust storm, could also have generated carbon-12 and spread light carbon onto the surface. At the time, the conclusion was left deliberately open. Multiple plausible explanations, but no single explanation can be accepted without further research. On the other hand, Curiosity data based on a 2024 research by David Burt and his colleagues painted a different picture. Their research found carbonates in Gale Crater rich in unusually heavy carbon and oxygen isotopes. These carbonates, which form from CO2 and water, held far more carbon-13 and oxygen-18 than any known on Earth. The values were so high that they pointed to intensive evaporation. As lighter isotopes escape first during evaporation, the remaining water grows heavier, and those heavy isotopes become locked into carbonate rocks. Dr. Bird explained that this ratio reveals a climate where liquid water was fleeting and salty, conditions not very friendly to life at the surface. Let's get back to Perseverance for a moment. New discoveries made by the rover raised fresh questions regarding isotopes. Once its samples return to Earth, the organic molecules and minerals in the bright Angel mudstone can be analyzed for their isotope ratios, not only of carbon, but perhaps of sulfur as well. For example, the sulfides in the leopard spots carry a light sulfur signature typical of microbial sulfate reduction that would strengthen the case for biology. In many ways, the rocks of Mars whisper that something important happened there. But is that whisper the voice of life, or only the echo of chemistry? These 3 lines of evidence, organic molecules, mineral microstructures, and isotope ratios, they weave together a complicated tale about the planet's past. Each one can be read 2 ways, but together, they are no longer a simple coincidence. Still, what will be the final verdict regarding life on Mars? Let's address that next. The central question Perseverance has raised is simple, yet vast in terms of consequence. Are we seeing signs of life or the byproducts of lifeless chemistry? If the clues from Jezero Crater turn out to be proof of ancient Martian microbes, it would mean that life began independently on 2 planets. That would be a staggering discovery. It would mean a second Genesis, a biosphere born on Mars entirely separate from life on Earth. For the first time, we would know that we are not alone in the most literal sense, that life has sprung up twice in one small solar system. Every microfossil found in Martian mudstone would rewrite biology textbooks and likely give birth to a new field of comparative exobiology. Yet unsettling questions would follow. How did Mars lose its biosphere? Could Earth face a similar fate? On the other hand, suppose ongoing studies show that every line of evidence can be explained without life. Then what? While it might sound disappointing, the result that declares no life would still be a major finding about Mars. It would sharpen our understanding of false positives in the search for life, and the geochemical story itself would remain fascinating, helping us learn about the history of Martian ecology. For example, the heavy isotopes and carbonates already tell of extreme evaporation cycles in a harsh climate. The presence of complex organics, even without biology, reveals how far chemistry can push toward life's threshold on its own. This knowledge will guide future missions and enrich our effort to understand habitable worlds. How will we know which story is true? The answer lies in a bold mission yet to come: the Mars sample return. Perseverance wasn't sent just to explore, but to collect samples too. Throughout its mission, the rover has carefully drilled rock cores and sealed them in sterile titanium tubes. By the end of 2025, it had gathered 27 samples of rock and soil, including the precious core from Shaeva Falls. NASA and the European Space Agency plan in the 2030s to carry out a daring campaign to bring those tubes back. The plan involves a fetch rover, a Mars ascent rocket, and an orbiter to deliver the samples to Earth. Why go to such efforts? Because some questions are so grand that we must throw every tool we have at them. As the researchers note, the lab instruments on Earth can be up to 10,000 times more sensitive in detecting organics than Perseverance's onboard gear. In a nutshell, we should be able to gather the extraordinary evidence needed to support an extraordinary claim. And so, the final answer hinges on the return of the Martian samples. Only then will we know if we are alone in the universe. Until then, our red neighbor will keep its secrets just a little longer.